and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Thabita Alcor. Let's begin. From the home front tonight in Fako division, life is becoming increasingly uncertain for ordinary people trying to survive between insecurity, economic hardship, and daily survival struggles. From Tiko to Limbe and across nearby communities, residents continue to speak of rising tension, where fear is no longer an occasional feeling, but part of everyday living. In Tiko, traders are still counting their losses after reports of forceful collections and alleged extortion linked to local authorities. For many small business owners, what should be a simple act of paying taxes or running their shops has turned into a daily struggle with uncertainty, intimidation, and the fear of losing everything they have worked for. And in Limbe, mobile money operators are burying colleagues and tightening security around their kiosks after a wave of violent attacks that has left at least one operator dead and others injured. These are young people, many of them graduates who turn to small business to survive, now forced to operate under constant fear of being targeted again. Now across Fako, the story is the same: pain, loss, economic pressure, and a growing sense of marginalization in a territory still gripped by war and competing claims of authority. For many, each day is not just about making a living, but about making it home alive. And as night falls, the tension across these communities is not easing. It is rather deepening, with a new report emerging that could further expose the fragile balance between survival, authority, and insecurity in Ambazonia. Well, details of that unfolding situation now follow in tonight's full report. But before we get into that, let's head on to the prime headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, we take a look at Tiko traders accuse council of extortion amid shop clampdown. Also tonight, fear grips Fako as mobile money operators protest rising deadly attacks. And tonight, patients flee as gunfire reportedly erupts inside Kumbo Banso Baptist Hospital amid military operation. Also tonight, we'll take a look at two soldiers killed in ambush, weapons reportedly seized by Ambazonian State Army. And an African scene, Chad declares a national mourning after Boko Haram attack kills generals and soldiers. And on news across the globe, Rubio meets Pope Leo at Vatican amid rising tensions over Iran war. Now, with this, we head on to the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. Store owners in Tiko have accused municipal authorities of extortion after council officials, accompanied by armed police officers, allegedly forced traders to pay 50,000 francs CFA each for shops located beneath high-tension electricity cables. The operation was carried out earlier on Thursday around the Tiko toll gate, where several business premises were reportedly targeted during the collection exercise. Council officials allegedly told traders the payment was for temporary occupation, but provided no detailed explanation on official documentation to justify delivery. Some shop owners reportedly resisted the payment, describing the exercise as illegal and exploitative amid a worsening economic hardship in the war zone in Ambazonia. Witnesses said tensions escalated after some traders challenged the officials, prompting an alleged response from council agents telling them to go and create your own country, a remark likely to inflame already fragile settlements in the restive war zone. Business owners who failed or refused to pay reportedly had their shops sealed by the authorities during the operation. Now we see that this incident sparks a fresh criticism of local administrative authorities in Ambazonia, where residents continue to complain of heavy taxation, intimidation, and economic pressure. Well, tonight, we are privileged and honored still to have our legal mind, Barrister Mbeseha, with us on the show tonight. Barrister Mbeseha, it's always a pleasure to have you. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, Barrister Mbeseha, with growing accusations of intimidation, illegal taxation, and inflammatory remarks from local authorities in Tiko, as you've just listened to, what does this incident reveal about the deepening mistrust between civilians and administrative officials amid this war? Would we say they're exploiting the war to harm civilians?
Well, I think the facts so far are not clear enough. Why were they asking the traders to pay money? I thought you something. He said something that they were installing their stores under a high tension line. If that part of the story is true, why should a normal administration allow high excluded from any activity? Because they are dangerous. And so if they're asking people to install themselves there and pay the money, manifest. Second, is not supposed to extorting money from people. They're supposed to build stores and then they to rent from them. If they build, for example, if you're in the market, that's what they call market. Built by the council, you rent one on an agreed contract, specified for a period of time, 1 year, maybe 6 months, and you pay that sum and that's over. If they have not done that, going on to extort, to get money from people at random can rightly be described as extortion. And if you are getting that money, if it is right, they are the council. The council is supposed to be the lowest level of administration. They are not supposed to resort to that of anger. They are supposed to explain to the people why they are taking the money. Let them justify it. Because the council is the lowest level of administration that reaches the ground level, the grassroots of the population. And so if there's a rift, and I'm sure there is one, why are they coming there with the military? The council does not command the military. What we have today in Cameroon, we used to call them council messengers, are what we call the council police. The council police don't have the right to do what they are doing. And so if this people resulted to bringing the military, there's something wrong. It means that the mayor or some authority went there, requested them to give them the army to go and enforce it on the civilian. We, by every standard, it is wrong, it is illegal. And so the involvement of the military changes the whole dynamics. It's no longer council if the military is involved. It is no longer council if the ordinary police guy is involved. It is no longer council if the council are involved, or the B. Because the gendarmes, the B, the police are not under the council. What was known in the southern Cameroon as council messengers, they are the ones that enforce council rules. Today, they call them council police, but they are not even from council messengers. But again and again, if they have involved all these people, the DO, the mayor, the military, the gendarme, and so on, it is a total violation of the law. That only goes to justify that there's an extortion there. They're forcing people, because when you bring the army comes with the guns. The council messenger never carry guns. The council police are not supposed to carry guns. And so if you bring people with guns, to compare people pay an amount of money, even if it is only 5,000, that is extortion. If it is only 1,000, that's extortion. That's why we have insisted here previously that the road blocks the mount there with soldiers and policemen standing there with their guns and asking a driver to pay them 2,000, 3,000, whatever amount of money. Because if you don't pay, they will bust their tires with their gun. They will shoot and sometimes they kill. That's an example of what we call extortion. You get getting money from somebody who do not want to give the money, who is being forced to give to save himself or to save his property or someone else. And so again, Tiko, like any other council, you are supposed to be the lowest level of the administration. Wherever citizen resident within your area can talk to you. Wherever activity you take, they should be able to explain it. Because they have councillors. The administrative council includes the councillors who represent every single quarter in the town. I'm not sure they are involved in this extortion. So we'd rather tell the people to resist. If what is going on they perceive to be wrong, they should resist. Because the council was meant to save them, not they to save the council. Over to you.
President Mbeseha, do you consider 50,000 francs CFA as extortion?
It can be any amount. Everything is extortion as long as they are forcing it out of your hands without your will. I said here just an example. When you stand on the road and take 500 francs, that's $1 American dollar. But that's extortion because the guy is not paying because he wants to pay. If he doesn't pay, he will not go. He's being forced to pay. And worst of all, you pay, nobody gives you a receipt. A receipt is not an ordinary piece of paper that's right there. Take a piece of paper like the ADF have been doing and say this is a receipt. That's not a receipt. So as long as somebody is paying that money against his wishes, his or her wishes, it's extortion. If it is 1,000, it's extortion. Over to you.
Barrister Mbeseha, from the report, you clearly heard that the people's decrying of this extortion, supposed extortion, the response to that from the council members were, go create your own country. What do you think that? What's your reaction to that?
Well, they are being stupid because what they are doing there, they are not enforcing a national policy. So you cannot ask somebody in Tiko to go and create his own country. Tiko is not a country. Tiko is a council like any other council. They have to abide by the laws of the country. So if somebody is resisting, go create your own country is not an answer. Telling him to go create his own council or whatever thing you call it is not an answer. What the person needs is an explanation, a justification for what you are doing, not a defiance and asking he or her to go create his or her own country, go create his or her own council, or at least maybe you just say, if you don't want to pay here, run to Tiko, run to Boya, run to Limbe, run to Moyuka. That is not an answer. That's still extortion. That's arrogance, at the least. That's arrogance. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Barrister Mbeseha. Let's move over to this report. Mobile money operators across Ambazonia's Fako division have raised alarm over increasing attacks to get in their businesses following the killing of one of their colleagues in Bota, Limbe. The operators on Thursday stormed the premises of the senior divisional officer for Fako in Limbe, demanding urgent security protection amid what they describe as a growing wave of violent robberies against their profession. The protest comes barely a day after a mobile money operator was reportedly killed during an attack in Bota, a commercial neighborhood in Limbe. Now we see that cases of assault and armed robberies targeting mobile money operators have in recent months been reported across Tiko, Boya, and Limbe, deepening fear among young entrepreneurs struggling to survive in Ambazonia. Now, many operators, most of them graduates facing unemployment, turn to mobile money businesses as a means of survival. However, we see that the recent surge in attacks has left several of them operating under fear and uncertainty. The protesting operators called on authorities to dismantle criminal networks allegedly targeting their kiosks and movement. Warning that the situation is becoming unbearable, they also urged colleagues to remain vigilant to avoid predictable routines and be cautious of unfamiliar individuals loitering around their business point under suspicious circumstances. This latest incident has once again highlighted growing insecurity and economic vulnerability in Ambazonia, where small-scale business owners continue to face a mounting threat amid the war. Barrister Mbeseha, insecurity in Ambazonia as it stands now seems not to be an abstract event. Whenever we're on the show, we have really stories and reports on insecurity coming in from the home front. But then with mobile money operators now protesting openly after repeatedly facing deadly attacks across Fako division, one is left to actually question the safety of young entrepreneurs trying to survive, especially in the face of this war. Let's hear from you. What do you think and how do you believe this would impact these young entrepreneurs?
Of course, it impacts them very, very negatively. One thing we should be clear about is money operators are not doing anything illegal. They are a legitimate business. And to the best of my knowledge, they pay taxes. They pay taxes. And so they deserve protection. If the security in town deserve to be protected as source of that place. Money is going on in limit. It's not isolated spots. Or area where you have different tasks. The question we should ask is why, in fact, coming in plain daylight and where is the town? What are the multiple companies of the gendarmes, of the police? What are they doing in Limbe? Limbe is not even a large town. If it is not a mobile money, anybody else in Victoria, shot in plain light and goes free. Question is what is going on with the town, security of the town? Where are the gendarmes? What is their own job? Just to sit there, as we said in the last segment, extort from people, extort money from people going to the now, worse. Or wait there to hear is more suspicious and they say and burn the whole place. So it's a total failure of the system. The mobile money operators have done nothing. But now is guy they are protesting to him. They have been there. He knows the town very, very well. He's a prefect. He's not just a prefect. He's also the chef de terre, who is appointed by presidential decree. In other words, he has direct instructions from the presidency. We're still reporting to his bosses in here that is shot at random. And how big is it? We shoot and kill someone will not be caught. And of course, we expect a couple of hours, if not days. They will say that investigations are ongoing. Investigations that will never have any results. Investigations that nobody is held accountable for it, for the acts that are complained of. And so again, this is where we find ourselves. As I said in other segments before, where insecurity in the streets, there is no more life to live. Because you can be shot at daytime, you can be shot in the night, you can be killed when you're in here, you can be killed when you're out of it. There's therefore absence of governance. And so a guy like in the face is the boss of the town. Limbe 1, 2, 3, small, one divided different officers. All this, you have the Limbe 1, 2, 3, they have police stations. Each one of the stations with thousands of policemen there. And so, how can people commit these acts in Limbe and go free? If there's any security anywhere in Cameroon, Limbe should have the best security in terms of security. Why? Because Limbe is host to the B. The B are trained there. Trained Manobe, a few kilometers from there. That's the whole headquarters. Secondly, their so-called sonora that brings them all the money is found there. They have police stations right there. They have everything right there. Small town like Limbe. I'm not sure Limbe has even up to 100,000 people. And so this is total failure of administration. This total failure of whatever thing is existing there. Nobody should be taken, nobody should risk his life just doing mobile phone. Mobile phone is not bad, but you deserve protection. We agree. Most of those people doing those things are graduates from the universities. They have nowhere else to go. That's the only way they can survive. Just like the bike riders, what they call it Okada. They don't have machines. And they cannot ride their motorbikes on the road safely. What do you expect these guys to go to? There's no one to report to. There's no one to be held accountable. There's just nothing. That is not what Ambazonia signed up to. That's not what Southern Cameroon signed up to for independence. We sign up to independence, to be independent, to be able to to provide security for our own citizens, to be able to collect money from, call it mobile money dealers as taxes, and make sure that their business is safe. If this is not being done, there is no taxation without representation. There is no taxation without accountability. And so, like in Tiko, if you have to get money from people, make sure if they are not safe, the failure is on yours. Be it in Tiko, be it in Bamada, anywhere else in Ambazonia. That's the reason for which we fight, and we will continue to fight until we take this off us. Over to you.
Yeah, the fight continues. Thank you very much, Barrister Mbeseha. We got this report from Banso. A panic is happening right there. Panic gripped Banso Baptist Hospital on Wednesday, May 6th, after patients and staff reported that French Cameroon government forces entered the facility and discharged live ammunition inside the outpatient department and hospital wards. Eyewitnesses described chaotic scenes as patients and caregivers fled for safety within the hospital premises. Now, witnesses said that the situation created widespread fear, questioning the conduct of the security operation and its impact on the medical facility. According to the same source, the soldiers later withdrew from the hospital environment and returned to their barracks in Mbeseha and squares. Hospital officials had not confirmed any casualties as of press time. Now, multiple sources within the hospital, however, denied claims that armed fighters were present within the facility at the time of the incident, following initial security concerns that the hospital may have been used as cover during ongoing clashes. The circumstances leading to the discharge of live ammunition inside the medical facility remain unclear. Local reports indicate that earlier on Wednesday, there were confrontations between government troops and Ambazonian State Army in other parts of Kumbo. It is not yet confirmed whether those clashes were linked to the hospital incident. Now we'll see that this operation by the Cameroon Baptist Convention Health Services is a major referral hospital serving in Bui Division and has provided treatment to civilians and combatants throughout the world. Under international humanitarian law, medical facilities are protected spaces and are not to be used as battlegrounds. The incident has triggered renewed concern among residents over the safety of health institutions in a war area. A Kumbo-based civil society actor described hospitals as sanctuaries that must be protected, warning that continued insecurity could deter civilians from seeking essential care. Also, the military authorities have not yet responded to the allegations at the time of filing this report. The extent of damage to the hospital wards, as well as any possible injuries to patients or staff, is still being assessed. Barrister Mbeseha, in light of this report that live ammunition was discharged inside Banso Baptist Hospital during military operations in Kumbo, what does this incident reveal about the protection of medical facilities and the conduct of security operations in southern Cameroon? Do you believe this is against international law?
Well, it is not a question of my belief. The law is this. It's an international law and a national law even. In times of conflict, hospitals, not even hospitals, call it medical facilities, are off limit. You don't go into any medical facility. It need not be a hospital. For example, the Red Cross, they are not a hospital. You give first aid. You don't attack them. The Medicine Sans Frontier is not a hospital. They run mobile clinics in the war front to treat the wounded. So there's not, once you are wounded, you're a human being. It doesn't matter for who you are fighting. Once you are wounded, you deserve treatment. In terms of Cameroon, even the military, if you are wounded, they are supposed to be rushed to the hospital. Call it our Amba fighters. If they have been wounded, it is a right to go for treatment in the medical facilities which are found there. But over the years, in the past 10 years, I will know, the government of Cameroon has virtually just disregarded that thing. The medical facilities have never been off limit to them. We remember the burning of the hospital in Mbeseha 4 or 5 years ago, I think 2022 or 2020. Remember the burning of the Kumba hospital. Yes, they will explain, I don't know who burned the hospital. Circumstances were unclear. That's possible, but they have not come out with an investigation. But that's not even enough. We remember just a few days ago, I think, somewhere in Bamenda, nothing was going on. We see that in Kumbo. They ran to the hospital, extracted a wounded man, whom they suspected was supposed to be an Amba fighter with his wife. They took him to jail. He's languishing in jail today with his wounds. And so they have never respected any rules in law, in any rules of law, no. Of war. Once it's war, they don't care. If you run to the hospital, they come and kill you. They bend down the hospital, they cannot identify the person in order to kill one man they suspect for being a criminal. And so again, that is totally out of the norms. Because a wounded soldier, be it of the military or be it of Ambazonia, once you're already wounded, you're out of action. You no longer pose any danger to anybody because you're already wounded. You're already disabled. And so whoever comes and kills you or brings his or her actions against you is committing a civil crime. You cannot call it a war tactic. The war tactic does not permit you to kill the wounded, even if they are the wounded of your opponents. As I said the other day, even if an Amba boy was standing there, or even a military guy, and lay down his arms and carry up his hands, if you shoot him, you have committed murder. Because once he lays down his arm, he's still even in uniform, his hands are up. They're showing that he's no longer a danger to you. If in your anger, because he's your opponent, you shot and killed him, or kill her, you are a murderer, they will charge you. But back to this particular incident. What happened in Bui, we call it Baptist Hospital, is just synonymous. Not after a year ago, they went to Akum, Kale Hospital, they extracted patients from there, carried them away. 2 days ago, I'm saying here, they went there again, extracted a guy they suspected for being an Amba fighter. As we speak, the guy is in prison. Nobody's taking care of his wounds. They wish him dead. And so this is a lawless country. They don't even respect their own laws, talk less of international laws. They respect nothing. They are a lawless community. And this is happening today, just is it up to 2 weeks since the Pope left? The headquarters of the Preaching for Peace was in Bamenda. That was in the Bamenda is generally referred to as the Bamenda Ecclesiastical Province. That included Bui. It included Mamfe, where these things were happening. It included Kumba, where these hospitals were burned down. And the Pope came there, preached what he could. And as soon as he left, they continued doing what they are doing. These people are lawless. These people are criminals. It's impossible. To me, it's almost impossible for any civilized person to live with them. And that's why we Ambazonians must fight until they get free. The journey is long, but we have to get out of it. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Barrister Mbeseha. Now let's move over to Jakiri. Let's see what's happening right there. Images obtained online confirms the death of 2 soldiers who were killed on Monday, May 4th, in an ambush in Jakiri. According to security sources, the soldiers were attacked at the veterinary school area in Jakiri by Ambazonian State Army during what appears to be a coordinated ambush operation. One of the soldiers was reportedly disarmed during the attack, with his automatic rifle taken by the assailants before they retreated from the scene. The incident adds to a series of deadly confrontations in southern Cameroon, where armed clashes between French Cameroon soldiers and Ambazonian State Army continue to test prolonged war and struggle for self-determination. Military authorities are yet to issue an official detailed statement on the attack or confirm operational losses. Now, Barrister Mbeseha, following the reported ambush in Jakiri that left 2 French Cameroon soldiers dead and weapons seized, you can see that on the screen. What does this incident indicate about the evolving strength, we would say, tactics and escalation of armed confrontations between the Ambazonian State Army and French Cameroon soldiers?
Well, it just confirms, as many people have said, and they already know, that what they're doing is not a winnable war. They will not win it. I've just said in the last segment that you don't shoot somebody who's not doing nothing. Those guys that you showed us their pictures, they're armed, they're in uniform. They are in the checkpoint with their guns. So they are a legitimate target for the fighters. The attack is very, very legitimate. But they can attack them right there and wound them or leave them in the way they left them. It's indicating that the war is not winnable by the government. No matter how many soldiers they deploy there, those of them who are killed there, if they take their guns, they find that they have so many rounds of ammunition in those guns. But they can only go so much. What we do, which is what our boys did, we are guerrilla fighters. We sneak in and sneak out. And if you take out a target such as that, that is legitimate. You should be encouraged to do that. They didn't kill any other civilian. They took those people, they considered to be their opponents in the war front. Because the checkpoint where they are, there is a war front. The war fronts are not, can be shifted to any place. That's a war front because the guys are sitting there armed to the teeth. As we said in the case of Tiko, extorting money from the citizens. And so, when you attack them, that's legitimate. There's no free place in Ambazonia, be it in Bui, be it in Magno, be it in Kambe, anywhere, they are legitimate targets. And that will continue until such a time that they agree to, their political masters, agree to come to the conference table and discuss the root causes of the problem, and then that we shall agree on how to end the war. Other than that, their lives are in danger. We can only encourage our boys, congratulate them for being precise, for attacking the rightful targets. They didn't attack the money, the mobile money people to steal their money. They attacked the correct people. They took their arms, which is legitimate. Over to you.
Thank you, Barrister Mbeseha. As always, we actually do appreciate your time for spending it with us on the show and speaking to our people from the home front. Thank you very much, Barrister Mbeseha. Well, this is where we'll let you go, so we'll head over to the rest of the news.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. On the African scene, South Sudanese President Salva Kiir has dismissed the country's army chief and finance minister in the latest round of high-level government reshuffles amid growing political and security uncertainty. According to reports on Wednesday, General Paul Nang was removed as head of the military less than a year after his appointment in October. His dismissal comes as the country faces worsening security concerns. Local media reported that General Santino Deng Wall, a close ally of Kiir and former army chief from 2020 to 2024, has been reappointed to the position. Kiir also removed Finance Minister Salvatore Garang Maboti, who had served for less than 3 months after taking office on the 23rd of February. The dismissals follow a series of leadership changes carried out by the president in recent weeks. At the end of April, Kiir fired the foreign minister and the head of the Internal Security Bureau. Earlier in the month, he also dismissed the Speaker and Deputy Speaker of Parliament. Political analysts say the repeated reshuffles reflect efforts by Kiir to consolidate power as the country grapples with instability and growing speculation over succession within the ruling establishment. Now we see that South Sudan continues to struggle with the implementation of the 2018 peace agreement that ended a 5-year civil war. Under the agreement, the president retains broad powers to appoint and dismiss senior officials at national and state levels. The country is expected to hold elections in December after years of postponement. If conducted, the vote would mark South Sudan's first national elections since gaining independence from Sudan 15 years ago. Now let's head over to Chad. Chad has declared 3 days of national mourning following deadly attacks by Boko Haram fighters in the Lake Chad region that killed 2 generals and several soldiers. The government announced the mourning period from midnight on May 6th to midnight on May 9th in honor of security personnel killed during attacks carried out on May 4th and May 6th. Authorities said national flags would fly at half-mast throughout the mourning period, while all festive activities across the country were suspended. The latest violence comes after Boko Haram fighters attacked the Tolorum military base on the Chadian side of Lake Chad on Monday evening. Military sources said at least 24 soldiers were killed and several others injured in the assault. On Wednesday, 2 senior military officers were also killed after Security and Defense Force boats conducting patrol operations on the lake reportedly came under ambush by Boko Haram fighters in the island area. Now we see that President Muhammad Idris Deby Itno vowed to continue military operations against the armed group, stressing that the government remained committed to eliminating the threat posed by jihadist factions operating in the region. The Lake Chad Basin, which borders Chad, Nigeria, Cameroon, and Niger, has remained a hotspot for insurgent activity for more than a decade. The region serves as a base for both Boko Haram and its rival faction, the Islamic State West African Province, ISWAP. Recent months have seen renewed attacks by Jama'atu Ali Sunnah leader Awati Wal Jihad, a Boko Haram faction linked to kidnappings and assaults on military positions. In October 2024, another major Boko Haram attack in the Lake Chad Basin killed around 40 Chadian soldiers, prompting the launch of Operation Haskaniti, a military campaign aimed at dismantling insurgent strongholds. Although the Chadian army announced in February 2025 that Boko Haram no longer maintained safe havens inside Chadian territory, the latest attacks underscore continuing security challenges in the region. Now let's see what's trending around the globe. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Pope Leo XIV at the Vatican today as tensions continue between Washington and the Holy See over the Iran war and wider foreign policy disagreement. The closed-door meeting marked the first encounter between the Pope and a senior member of President Donald Trump's cabinet. And this is coming since Pope Leo became the first American pontiff nearly a year ago. According to the Vatican, the talks included discussions on regional and international development, with both sides reaffirming their commitment to maintaining strong bilateral relations. Rubio later said the meeting focused on promoting peace and human dignity. The meeting comes after weeks of public criticism from President Trump directed at the Pope over his comment on the Iran conflict and broader global security concerns. President Trump has repeatedly accused Pope Leo of taking positions he believes to weaken a U.S. policy toward Iran. The president criticized the pontiff's call for diplomacy and accused him of being soft on issues relating to Iran's nuclear ambitions and international security. Meanwhile, the Vatican has rejected suggestions that the Pope supports nuclear weapons or Iran's military ambitions, reiterating the Catholic Church's long-standing opposition to nuclear arms. Pope Leo XIV has consistently called for dialogue and de-escalation in the Middle East, urging political leaders to prioritize peace negotiations and warning against what he described as dangerous displays of political and military power. During the visit, Rubio also met Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin, who recently defended the Pope against political criticism and described attacks on the pontiff as inappropriate. The diplomatic engagement highlights growing strains between President Trump's administration and the Vatican over the wars in the Middle East, immigration policy, and international diplomacy. Meanwhile, Rubio is also expected to meet Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni during his visit to Europe as discussions continue over Western responses to the Iran conflict. Now, let's see the developments coming in from Tunisia. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has called on Tunisia to halt what it described as a growing crackdown on civil society groups, journalists, opposition figures, and human rights defenders. In a statement released Thursday, UN Rights Chief Volker Turk said the widening restrictions imposed by Tunisian authorities were undermining freedoms protected under both Tunisia's constitution and international human rights obligations. The warning comes after Tunisian authorities temporarily suspended the local branch of international legal rights group Avocats Sans Frontières for 30 days. The move followed similar action taken days earlier against the Tunisian League for Human Rights, another prominent civil society organization. Avocats Sans Frontières confirmed the suspension but did not disclose the reasons given by authorities. The United Nations Rights Office noted that Tunisian officials frequently cite funding and audit-related concerns when imposing such measures on organizations. According to the United Nations, Tunisian authorities are increasingly using judicial sanctions to limit freedom of association, raising concerns over due process, legality, and proportionality. The Rights Office also expressed concern over mounting pressure on the media sector. Tunisian journalist Zied El Henni was arrested late last month after publicly criticizing court rulings involving fellow journalists and members of the judiciary. His lawyer said he was accused of causing harm to others and damaging reputations. Well, the United Nations said El Henni remains in pre-trial detention and noted that at least 28 journalists were arrested in Tunisia last year. Several reportedly received prison sentences linked to their professional work. And we see that many of the prosecutions were carried out under provisions of a 2022 decree law aimed at combating crimes related to information and communication systems. Legislation rights groups say has increasingly been used to restrict freedom of expression. The United Nations Rights Office urged Tunisian authorities to release individuals detained for peacefully expressing their views and to remove what it called arbitrary restrictions on freedoms of expression and association. The statement also called for stronger institutional safeguards, protection of civil space, and reforms aligned with international human rights standards. Now, this is development coming in from Tunisia, but with that, we've come to the end of Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. But before we go, a recap of our major headlines. And tonight Undaunted, we saw Tiko traders accuse counsel of extortion amid shop clampdown. Also tonight we saw fear grips Fako as mobile money operators protest rising deadly attacks. Tonight patients flee as gunfire reportedly erupts inside Kumbo Baptist Hospital amid military operation. 2 soldiers killed in ambush. Weapons reportedly seized by Ambazonian State Army. And on African scene, Chad declares a national mourning after Boko Haram attack kills generals and soldiers. And in the rest of the news across the globe, Rubio meets Pope Leo at Vatican amid rising tensions over Iran war. And that is all on Undaunted tonight, bringing into the news untold stories. On behalf of the entire Undaunted newsroom, we say thank you for joining. We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless.